going through. It's not even difficult to set up. We got the pandemic. We got the ever-present racial injustice, police violence against unarmed Black people, violence in general against unarmed Black people. We have the economic issues, the loss of businesses, the loss of jobs, the lack of stimulus, the unemployment, you name it, eviction crisis because of the lack of protections against eviction with the stimulus package expiring. There's a whole lot of stuff going on, plus the normal day-to-day things that go on in life, family issues, work issues, divorce issues, marriage issues, you name it. Life didn't stop because of COVID or because of the last 8 minutes or 46 seconds of George Floyd's life and everything that's come after that. So we have today Phillip Roundtree, serious champion for mental health awareness for Black people in general, for people in general, Black men in particular. He's the founder and CEO of Quantify LLC, a BE Modern Man of Distinction for those of you who are a member and know about that community. Listen, Phil Roundtree, thanks for coming on board, man. Thanks for, especially on such short notice, thanks for agreeing to have this conversation.
Oh, no doubt, Alfred. Thank you for having me.
So listen, man, every interview I've done in this series, Beyond the Hype, and one of the things I love about this series is that I get to talk to people from all walks of life. It's not just the entrepreneur, personal finance expert, career expert, the bread and butter of Black enterprise, but Black people achieving in every area of life. But the one common theme, whether I'm talking to Lamont Rucker, the actor, from Greenleaf, whether I'm talking to Sekou Kalun of Chase, Bank, somewhere in there, mental wellness creeps into the conversation because of everything we're going through. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional, but it's been a thread. And it dawned on me last week as I was going through some of my own mental health challenges. And I'm a passionate believer in therapy and mental wellness. Was like, I haven't done a show specifically on how we're handling this, how we should be handling it, how we are handling it, and how we could be handling it, and what this means for mental wellness for us going forward, even when we're quote unquote not in crisis anymore. And before I let you jump in, and I want you to talk a little bit more about some of the things that you do, including the sessions you have with Black men that I guess are virtual now, and the other things that you're doing, your podcast and other things. But I was on a family Zoom call, and I was struck by something that has been very encouraging for me. It's not the first time, but it was my latest experience. That first of all, 80% of the people on the call have either as a couple or as individuals have therapists. This is like a traditional Black family, and I'm talking about people ages, let's say, mid-30s to late 60s. So first of all, it's the revolution that's no longer a strange conversation anymore. But it hit me, the bigger revolution was that we were all willing to talk about it. So it's not that again, these are people, older people. They didn't just go into therapy yesterday.
Yeah.
They apparently been in it for, some of them, 15, 20 years. But they weren't, I think we're finally in an environment where that's a conversation we can have and not feel weird about it anymore. It was just part of our natural conversation about how you're doing, what's going on with you. And I was encouraged by that, even as we're going through this situation that we're going through. And of course, I'm passionate about that. I talk about it all the time because I want us to normalize that this is no different than saying I went to see my family physician for my physical this year.
Yeah.
And we don't have a problem talking about that. So,
man, I don't even know. I might have to push back against that because, especially, when we talk about Black men and going to the doctor, going to a doctor to get an assessment with the passing of Chadwick Boseman. I'm just like, listen, I hope that Black men in particular are seeing that, listen, we are not immune to this. I understand that the medical mistrust that comes from, Tuskegee experiment and all of these different things. But nah, man, we need to be not only mentally well, but we definitely need to be physically well because, again, we're up against so much.
Well, that's, you and I sing from the same hymnal. I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about physical fitness, mental wellness, Definitely getting screenings. I literally just had my third colonoscopy right before the news about Chadwick Boseman. Because even though, and I grew up in a family and carried that into my mid 30s, really. I have a distrust of the medical profession. I mean, it was a real me having to turn, do a 180-degree turn in my early 30s. Because my experience with the medical profession, because I came from a working poor household in a working class neighborhood, was the public health clinic. And, you know, you went when you had to go, and it wasn't top-notch experience. And, you know, not to speak too far out of school, but my quote unquote family physician growing up, when I was in college, he got got in legal trouble for fraud, you know, Medicare fraud or whatever he was doing with this public funding for medical care that he was getting as a doctor. He wasn't doing the right thing. So, you know, but when I became a father, I kind of, you know, decided to have a different attitude toward it, and that's why I'm passionate about it now.
Yeah.
But so I'm totally with you. I think we're headed in the right direction, but you're right. We're still, you know, we still gotta continue to have.
We got a ways to go, and that's why we're here, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we get too much further, because you and I, you know, Phil and I are friends. I love this brother. We've done each other's shows on different platforms, so we can go off on all kinds of tangents. But talk about what you've been doing. I want people to know about your group for Black men. I know you got a podcast that you launched, I think, earlier this year.
Yeah,
You've been doing a lot of new stuff. And by the way, get the quantified gear. I should have worn. It wasn't so warm. I'd have worn my sweatshirt. Yeah,
matters is critical.
I love this is what anxiety looks like. Sweatshirt that I wear to the gym, and it never fails to get some great conversations going.
Yeah, and so what Alfred is referencing. So I do have Quantify LLC, which is a business that I started back in 2016, which really promotes mental wellness, physical wellness, emotional wellness, and spiritual wellness. It's this idea that in order to thrive in life, they all need to be working at optimal levels. So when we talk about physical issues, right, there's an emotional component that comes with that. You might be experiencing depression, anxiety. If you're experiencing depression, anxiety, you might be having some physical ailments, lack of sleep, different things. So it's all interrelated. And so the services that I offer, prior to COVID, I did a lot of public speaking when it comes to this idea of mental health, in particular, Black mental health. Is funny. There's so many white institutions. They're like, listen, we recognize the importance of the marginalized Black and brown folk on our campus, and we need somebody to speak to that. So Providence College, University of North Carolina, Greensboro. I did a TEDx talk, Black Mental Health Matters, on the subject of Black mental health, because again, it's something that it's starting to be destigmatized, right, in the community. But again, we have a long ways to go. And this stems from my personal experience with mental health. I live with depression and anxiety. I take my depression and anxiety medications every night at 8 p.m. But I wasn't always as open and forthcoming about what I was experiencing, because as Black men, as Black folk, we got to continue to push, right? We can't take time off. We can't rest. We got to be twice as good to get half. And so with that, you know, I have a bachelor's, I have 2 master's degrees. I'm in a doctoral program right now. Again, I have to achieve, right? But that takes a toll on us, right? That takes a toll on us. And we're just talking about, you know, just within our community. Then we start adding in, you know, the systemic factors. We see the civil unrest that's taking place. I had to call the students in my cohort out. I said, and this was right after the brother. There's so many brothers that's getting shot. Unfortunately, we just had
Wisconsin. I think I saw your post.
Yeah, in Wisconsin, but we just had one here in Pennsylvania, in Lancaster. An autistic man was shot yesterday evening, right? Shot and killed. And so Jacob Blake. And so I had to call my cohort members to the carpet in class. I said, listen, nobody reached out to myself or the only other Black person in this cohort to say, hey, are y'all okay? We're starting this doctoral program which is already difficult. And now we're seeing people that look like us getting killed for no other reason than looking like us, right? And we have to, again, be twice as good. We have to push that to the side. We can't choose to when we desire to engage. We don't have that luxury. And so it wasn't necessarily to shame them, but to say, listen, you have a privilege to say, I'm only focusing on school, right? I see what happened with Jacob Blake. I'm a social worker. I'm getting my doctorate in social work. Yes, I'm a social worker, but that's my profession. For us, I always say, this is bigger than Nino Brown, man. Right? Remember when Nino got up on the stand, he said, the brother at the bank, this bigger than Nino Brown. And again, with everything that's taken place and you know, what the cost of being Black, all of this influences our mental health. And so in 2016, I decided I need to have this conversation. A young man by the name of Emmanuel Sloan, who roughly 18, 19 years of age, he died by suicide by jumping in front of a train here in Philadelphia. Right? He had came from a job interview. You think everything is going okay, but then he decides to die by suicide. And I'm like, listen, he just becomes a footnote in the newspaper. And I'm like, listen, I'm doing myself a disservice. I'm doing this young brother a disservice. I'm doing a community disservice if they don't get the permission from somebody to say it's okay to feel whatever it is that you're feeling, right? And so then that spawned into, I've been a therapist for 10 years now. So I also do coaching. I sell merch. I do have the hashtag You Good Man Men's Wellness group that I run it's usually every Monday on Zoom, where again, brothers come together and we have conversations. Shout out to Mark Lamont Hill, you know, a homie of mine who 2 years ago, I came to him and said, listen, yo, I want to have a group at your bookstore, Uncle Bobby's. And he was like, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, Mark is a BE extended family. He used to be the host of a TV show we had called All World with Black Enterprise.
Word.
And yeah, so yeah, and very great work with the bookstore. And you know, you don't love Philly if you don't know Mark. So that's
facts. You know, and so that cultivated a relationship. And again, because I knew there's a space that was needed for Black men to just be able to express themselves. And we cover so many things. We talk about masculinity. You know, I don't like the term toxic masculinity because I think at the end of the day, we're talking about what does it take to be a healthy human being.
I agree.
Right?
I share that view. It's about toxic humanity,
exactly.
regardless of gender or sexual orientation or sexual identification.
Exactly.
Either you're healthy or you're not healthy.
Exactly. And so we talk about things like that. We talk about our mental wellness, what's happening in your life, right? Because a lot of brothers and I noticed, especially within that 30 to 40 range, a lot of brothers are now trying to unlearn everything that hip hop told them, that white supremacy has told them, that capitalism has told them, that patriarchy has told them. They're all trying to unlearn it, but they don't necessarily have the space to be able to make those mistakes, to say the things that it might not come out the right way, because now we do live in a world where you can't say something, you can't say it how you feel, right? Or you can't say it and then learn, because people are going to jump down your neck because this is cancel culture. So it's not room for teachable moments. And so that's what I offer in the group. And we also promote physical wellness. Last year, and this is, you know, I always talk about this example. Last year, right after John Singleton died from that heart attack, right? And it came out, his family said he had severe high blood pressure. I was like, you know what? Let me get some nurses. I have some friends of mine, some homegirls who are nurses. They came out, they took the brother's blood pressure. One of the young men, 29, his daughter was roughly 3 or 4 months of age at the time. They said, listen, you have to go to the emergency room right now because you're at risk of dying from a heart attack or a stroke. So he had to leave there and go directly to the emergency room. And subsequently, he had to change his lifestyle, right? And so he can live, not only live, but again, thrive. And so just that, my passion for mental health, because I again, man, everything that we experience is so heavy that we have to really be not only mindful, but we have to be proactive in dealing with it, because if we don't, who will?
You know, one of the reasons that you and I vibe so closely is you kind of named your main pillars, if you will, of what you do with Quantify, and it dovetails so strongly with the Successful brand, which I tell people it's about physical fitness, mental wellness, relationship health, through the Grown Zone platform that we have with Zara Green, and then the financial part, business and financial part. And when you raise John Singleton, he is an example of Black men dying in our peak earning years. So I tell people this is an economic and business and financial conversation as well. If you have a life expectancy of 72 and you only make 40,000 a year, but you die at 45 or 42, whatever, 25 years at 40,000 a year is $1 million of unearned income. Mm-hmm. And 40,000 is not even close to balling. 40,000 is like, depending on where you live, just making it.
Yeah.
And so when we look at John Singleton, when we look at Black executives in corporate America, I think it was Bernard Tyson, the brother Bernard Tyson, that suddenly passed away as a CEO of a Fortune 500 company in his late 50s. You're talking about, again, broader economic implications for Black families, Black communities, and what you said about the difference between surviving, which we're good at, we're still here after
we're great at it.
We're great at, but thriving is where we have to be, and that's not going to happen without a certain degree of real intention. Like you said, it's not just going to happen. We have to be proactive about our health on all platforms: financial, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, because left to its own devices, it will not happen. In fact, the forces arrayed against us are hostile to the idea of us thriving. And so we have to have an equal and opposite reaction in terms of being proactive against that.
Facts.
So what are you experiencing? And I really want to get to the current environment. What are you seeing, and what do you think? And I really want to some degree, reach out to the people who are in this audience who are either not even addressing the mental wealth implications, or they are addressing, they are aware of it, but they don't really know what to do about it. And I was on a call maybe a couple of weeks ago. Everybody's on Zoom calls every day, so now that I'm losing track of them. But we as journalists are having to manage our own exposure to some of this stuff, even though we have to pay attention to it because we're journalists. And I was saying to my family members that I've limited myself now to no more than 2 hours, 3 hours a day max of CNN or any kind of news. Like, I got to watch just enough of it to know what's going on and no more, because it was affecting my own mental wellness in this environment. I don't watch the videos of the shootings and the kneelings on the neck until I need to, and no more than necessary. Like, I'm not watching it over and over and over again. Talk about what people are coping with, and some of the things that you're seeing that people either need to do, have had to do, or are not doing, that's affecting both individual and the mental wellness of our community.
Yeah, we're in unprecedented times, right? Starting with COVID. This epidemic is real. I know there's a lot of people out there living their life like it's golden right now, like the pandemic is over. No, the pandemic is not over. People are still dying at alarming rates. People are still, I was just looking at a study of, this was a few weeks ago, even the people who are asymptomatic, they are showing with lung damage. They are showing with heart damage. We don't know the long-term effects that are going to result from COVID, which again, that's a stress on not only our bodies, but also our minds and having to cope with it. We see people aren't used to being disconnected, right? We're born and bred to engage with one another. This is how we've been raised since hunter-gatherers, right? Like we need to engage with one another. That adds an element of healthy stress and just wellness to our lives. And so being disengaged as we are, that's taking a toll on people, right? We've experienced depression, anxiety. Studies are showing people are working more on Zoom than they would if they were in their office. My daughter, who is 11, who is in virtual school right now, who hates it, she wants to go back because some of her peers are. It's difficult for her, recognizing that, you know what, all your peers are here, you're here, and now you have to be on a screen for 6 to 8 hours a day. We're seeing headaches, we're seeing stress related to
eye strain. I've been
eye strain coming from COVID. And so, we have that element to that. Then we add the civic unrest that's taking place. Again, when we talk about Black folks, seeing people that look like you getting killed, whether it's by people that look like you or just because you're Black and somebody wants to show their and improve their authority. And so again, that takes a toll on your wellness, right? Because you can't just stop being Black unless you watched Love Country last night. I don't know when it's going to show. Love Country is an amazing show where no spoilers, because I don't know, but I don't know if you've watched it, Alfred, but it's an amazing show or HBO. And it talked about this idea of just whiteness and a lot of Black folk and how difficult it is for us to really navigate these spaces, which again, our mental health. I often give COVID credit for this unrest that's taken place, because I don't know if COVID wasn't a thing, if George Floyd would have got killed, or Breonna Taylor, but mainly George Floyd, because we were all at home and we were all stationary.
Right.
So I think
most of our distractions were eliminated.
Exactly. Exactly. And so again, those factors. Then we talk about the unhealthy coping that we're doing. So you're home all day. You have more time to scroll on your phone. We're not built to ingest all of this information that we're taking in, right? We aren't. This is a new phenomena where we talk about Facebook, Twitter, this ease of access to the information. But this has never been a thing until now. And so it's good to hear that you're focusing on your wellness and limiting yourself, because again, that's a strategy to say, you know what, listen, I need to disconnect from the world, or not indulge in what we call trauma porn, which is the fight videos, which are the killings. Listen, there's a reason. I used to say, stop sharing this trauma, these videos of police videos. A friend of mine, Kerwin Sutherland, has a video about a poem about police videos and the impact that it has on us. But I recognize it's necessary, right? Because again, it spreads this information around, and so then we can mobilize. But that doesn't mean you have to watch it, right? Because if you were around for Sean Bell and Abdul Louima, if you were around for Philando Castile, you know what this means, right? You've seen it already. We've seen this story, and so it's no reason to subject yourself to that. So again, we're in a time where information ingestion is at an all-time high, and we have to be cognizant of what we're allowing into our space, and what we are allowing to drain our energy. We can't be arguing on Facebook or on Instagram. Trust me, I'm speaking to myself on that too. Because I like beef. Shoot, I'm talking to you too, because I know how you like.
No, because I do like discussion and debate, and I actually follow a lot of people who I know think differently from me, because I like being challenged. I like the stimulation. But you're right. You can get sucked in.
Okay, it's a rabbit hole, and it can be a
really
dangerous
rabbit hole. You have to manage that and not, literally pick your battles and say, this is a conversation worth having. And this one is never going to be enlightening. It's never going to go anywhere. And you're just going to blow time, money, and energy and end up being pissed off and aggravated and anxious and depressed. And it's not worth it. And yeah, so you really are talking about having to manage your own self in a way that is different than pre-COVID. Exactly. I want you to spend a little bit more time on this tug of war, because I'm experiencing it personally.
Okay.
Between COVID to at least cope with it successfully, at least right now, is about isolation. Like, the more you isolate yourself, the safer you are. On the flip side, the more isolated you are, the less healthy it is for you emotionally, mentally, and otherwise. And I'm wrestling with that because when gyms finally opened back up in New Jersey, I was one of those people that was like, call me in a month because I'm not going back until I know what that is cool, So it opened on September 1st, and I was saying I'm not going back until like mid-October. Well, I went back yesterday.
Yeah.
And what I realized was I did go back in part because I missed the quality of the workouts. But the real reason was I was like, I just need to have an excuse to be around somebody. Like, just being around other people. I mean, I'm literally picking out outfits to go to grocery shopping now because it's like a social event for me now.
Yeah.
I don't even know these people, but so talk about that real weird space that's caused a lot of that anxiety and the stress. But on the one hand, you don't want to do things that are unsafe for you. You don't want to get sick. You're worried about that. But then when you're stuck in the house, whether you're by yourself, sometimes it's worse. It's better to be by yourself because some my family members talking about being stuck with kids who don't want to be there all the time, spouses who are not used to being there all the time. Maybe there's an elder in the house, and not everybody has a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath house. Some people are doing this in 3-bedroom apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about the whole challenge of isolation versus the need for social interaction.
Yeah, well, we definitely need social interaction, and that's why I let people know. Just because you're social distancing, right, and you might be quarantined in your home, that doesn't mean you have to disconnect from the outside world. So as much flack as I give technology and Facebook and Instagram, it's not necessarily about them, but it's how we choose to engage and how we choose to use it, right? We're talking about okay, I might not be able to see my friends. And this is for those who are still adhering, because again, it seemed like the world is open back up and hopefully you're out there engaging in healthy social distancing practices, you're sanitizing and washing your hands and stand 6 feet away. But that means, you know what? I might have to have a Zoom happy hour with my friends or a Zoom check-in with my friends on a weekly basis who I'm used to seeing in person. It might mean I might text a little more. I might make more phone calls just to engage with people. If I do go outside, because the gym hurt me too for those months. And I was like, as soon as I saw Fauci and them say, well, exercising outdoors can be beneficial. That was my way of being around people. I would go run, make sure that I'm taking the proper precautions.
Right.
But again, just seeing people and being out in the atmosphere and the environment, going for walks around the block. Again,
I broke my bike out for the first time in 10 years, man. I've been sitting in my garage. I was like, that's the only way I can get cardio in now. But it was, and again, I realized that I was telling myself it was for the fitness benefit, but then I realized I like riding down to the park and seeing a bunch of people, and it was the being outside and being around people that was a bigger motivation than just the fact that I wanted to get cardio in on my bike.
Yeah. I think COVID showed us so much. It showed us where our coping skills were, what did we have in our toolbox, right? Because for so many, even though I've since added things to my toolbox, but at one point in my life, it was the gym. In my early years, it was just like I could go to the gym if I'm stressed, if I'm upset, if I'm whatever I'm feeling, I can go to the gym. But then it's this idea of if I'm a construction worker and I go to the construction site and all I have is a hammer, and yeah, I can do some things with the hammer, but what happens when the hammer isn't needed or I can't use it? What happens when I have to saw something? I have to measure something. I need more things in my toolbox. And what COVID showed a lot of us that our toolbox is bare, right? Our toolbox is bare. And so what can we do? It might mean reconnecting with the environment. We move so fast in this world. It's always something to do. That rise and grind Twitter that I loathe so much. You always got to be pushing something and moving.
Mm-hmm.
But again, being still and meditating is peaceful and helps your wellness. Walking outside and really taking in the trees and the environment. I used to think runners were dumb, right? Like, why would you run? Just lift weights. Until I started running. And then I started observing more about my environment, which I realized made me feel better, right? And so I think COVID has exposed this. And I think we've done an amazing job. we see what did you accomplish during COVID. We see the memes and the cliches. Shucks, I survived.
Yes.
That's enough.
Yes.
Right? You survived. In the beginning of quarantine and COVID, I had locks. And now here I am with the bald head because a part of me and the stress and the anxiety, I was just like, I need something to do. Just took all my hair off, right? But some people have maladaptive ways. They started drinking more. They started engaging in other vices. And so to those individuals, I take inventory of that, recognize that, and then we start to try to find other healthy outlets. I'm again, man, I might be one of the lone people who, is thankful that COVID is now here. Well, I'm thankful that COVID came because we're seeing so many things that needed change that wasn't changing. So me being a therapist and teletherapy, yes, it was practiced in certain places, but it was difficult to get insurance companies to buy into teletherapy until their money started looking funny. And then they said, okay, you know what? We're going to do teletherapy. We're going to authorize it. And I think we're not going to see this change to go back to where you have to be in person. Teletherapy will now be an option for so many people because everybody doesn't feel comfortable going into a physical space. And so I encourage
I know exactly what you're saying, Phil, about there's nobody saying, I wish COVID happened.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
I wish I saw somebody getting kneeled on television. None of this is stuff that we ask for, but the truth of the human experience is we often don't make changes that we could have made all along until we face a crisis. Like most of what even this Zoom call, like I tell people, I've been doing Zoom for 4 or 5 years, but in most companies, 90% of the people have never done a video conference call. So of course it was a big joke back in February and March when you see all the Saturday Night Live had great skits around Zoom calls and what happens on Zoom calls, because it was just new. But now that everybody's used to it, like, I could have been doing this. Technology was around. If you go back to Skype, I did my first Skype interview for television like 15 years ago on CNN with Ali Velshi, when people were like, "What are you doing?" So it is, and part of the reason I have these conversations on Beyond the Hype is because while the circumstances we would never have wished for, but like you said, the new tools, the new abilities that we're discovering, the new appreciation for things that we took for granted that we're discovering will serve us long after the crisis, quote unquote, however you define it, is over. And I don't want us to forget those lessons, that there are things that we're doing now, and including many of us are taking our physical health more seriously. I see people taking their nutrition more seriously, taking their obviously mental wellness more seriously. And so you're right, no one wished for COVID, but there's some good that could come out of it if we're intentional about it. Which is why I thought this conversation that I'm having with you is so important for us to hopefully carry something forward that we'll continue to use and will strengthen us as individuals and strengthen the Black community in general.
And that's what it is. I know in social work, we always start from a strengths-based perspective. And so if we take these last 6 months, right, and we storm away inside in our memory bank, we're going to incur something again, whether as a society or whether individually. And imagine being able to pull from, I survived COVID for 6 months, right? That is a huge strength to go forward, let alone the people who actually physically survived having COVID, right? Where you can be able to pull from that strength, that resolve, that resilience. So again, it's so critical when you talk about this idea of crises and what can come out of it. It typically takes, when it comes to the idea of mental health, it typically takes somebody 10 years to get their mental health, quote unquote, under control. And again, I don't think they were, this research included Black and brown folk, right? Because we know that number probably is a lot higher. And so if you're in the midst of COVID and you've started seeing a therapist, you started finding alternative, healthier ways to cope, again, you're taking steps to ensuring that your mental wellness is on point.
Right. You know, you hit a point I also think is important. Technology is not going to go away. And so I always tell people it's less about the technology itself and more on how you choose to use it. And again, you touched on it. Many of us, maybe not all of us, are finding ways to use technology in healthier ways. And I know for me, it is the family Zoom calls, which I have them on both sides of my family. My mother's side, we have it once a month. On my father's side, less frequently. But I've spent more time talking to my cousins, you know, in these last 6 months, maybe than in the past 2 years because we've been using technology to maintain that connection.
Yeah.
The other thing is texting and sending pictures. You know, it's like just text. You know, my favorite aunt. Everybody knows me. Knows my favorite aunt is my beloved Aunt Louise, who's just a wonderful, wonderful person, and I could do a whole show just talking about her. But you know, now I got into a habit where I'll just find photos, some of which are old, some are new, and just text them to her, and she gets tremendous joy out of that. You know,
Yeah.
like, oh, I remember this, I didn't have this, and so I think one of the things, the takeaways from this conversation is that we can leverage technology, whether that's texting, the cell phone, social media, Facebook, Instagram, in ways that encourage and uplift and bring hope, and not just kind of bang on, oh my God, the president's horrible and 100,000 people are dying every day. You know, you can use it in a way to really uplift and, you know, support your mental wellness as opposed to using it to constantly kind of tear yours down and others with it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree. It reminds me of I was reading in this book. It's called Deep Work by Cal Newport, and he talks about this idea of digital minimalism. Subsequently, he came out with a book called The Digital Minimalism, and it was this idea of listen, using your phone, using social media. That's cool, right? It may be useful for people in one way or another, but how are we using it? And he used the analogy of, let's say you go into work, right? And you know, you go in and you're there for that 1 hour, and your supervisor or whoever says, okay, yeah, you done your 1 hour, you know what, we're going to pay you for 8. Most of us are going to leave after that 1 hour. They can say you can leave if you want, but yet you stay for that additional 8 hours. And we look at social media and what have you the same. We can use it for a certain amount of time to get what we need done. But a lot of us are staying on there much longer than we need to be, right? And so then the longer we start to use, the longer we start to fall down these rabbit holes. And we see this a lot, especially with people who say they use it for business, right? It's just like, well, I use it to post. Yeah, posting accounts for maybe 10 to 15 minutes of your day, maybe every day. So what's the excuse for the other 3 to 4 hours that you're on there? Right. And so again, when we take this mindset and we recognize that, you know what, I can get what I need from it and keep it moving, and still be healthy, you know, we'll be better off for it. So again, it's redefining our relationship with technology as a whole.
It's also redefining our relationship with work. Again, you touched on it just now. A couple of the people on my family call last night were talking about, one is an entrepreneur and one is a lawyer, and both of them were talking about one, and it's true for me too. I'm working more hours now than I did when I was physically going into the office. Even though I may have been physically at work for longer hours, it feels, because now I have to self-regulate. I have to make, you know, one of my cousins was like, her husband has to call her every day and say, step away in the middle of the day, and then shut down your computer for the day. Yep. Because when you're working at home and your email is on and your social media is on, and you can do a Zoom anytime during the day, that's another rabbit hole you can get caught up in, and you can end up actually overworking. And in their case, they were like, and I'm not getting any sleep because I'm just on all the time. And so the need to self-regulate, to make healthy choices in general, is something that we're being forced to do, when used to be, well, your boss dictated your schedule, the train you caught in and out of to your office dictated your schedule. You had other factors to manage that, and now you have to manage it yourself. And again, if you're not conscious of your mental state, your emotional health, you can get sucked in to do a lot of damage without even realizing it until the damage is done.
Yeah, no, you have to establish boundaries when it comes to your work environment. So, again, I'm like I do so many things now. When you're a full-time entrepreneur, you got to. So
Too,
I'm
bro. Me too.
I'm an adjunct professor at Delaware State University, and I let those kids know. I said, listen, I check my email twice a day, right? I check it in the morning, and this goes for my business as well. Check it twice a day, once in the morning, and I check it once in the evening. That's it. Because I'm not going to be, because you can get caught up in email for 3 or 4 hours. No. So if you're emailing me 15 minutes before class starts, I'm not getting it. Why? Because first off, I don't have email on my phone. Refuse to have it on my phone because again, the alert, you're constantly checking it. It's strictly on my computer, right? Again, boundaries. My phone is what I want to use it for, and so we're talking about establishing work hours. How am I going to work? When am I going to work?
What am I going to work on?
What am I
You
going to
said,
work on?
you're an entrepreneur, and I'm a hybrid. I mean, my main job obviously is Black enterprise,
Yeah.
but I do public speaking, I do virtual speaking, I do coaching, I do some freelance editing work, and in addition to that, I have a life that I want to live.
Yeah.
And so you're right. And I got multiple emails. People say it's not your email. Your DM on Instagram is an email. Facebook Messenger is an email. LinkedIn is an email. So really, people are like, well, you didn't respond to my LinkedIn message. I'm like, yeah, you're right, because
Yeah.
if it's not a text, it's not that urgent,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be a text from everybody because everybody doesn't have my number.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do that to set boundaries so that I'm not getting overwhelmed by people saying, Alfred, I need your attention. Alfred, I need this from you. No. And my kids, a part of this is also managing other people's expectations. My children, who I love dearly and would jump in front of a bus don't just call me just to be calling me. They recognize that, we got to manage this. And I don't just call them just to be calling them, not because they don't love me, I don't love them, but because we're all trying to manage this demand on our time and attention. I go forever because people you have time to chat. People will text me, you got a few minutes just to chat? I'm like, no.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, right? And again, it speaks to the broader point of everybody shouldn't have access to you, right? And when we talk about, really doing a deep dive well, not deep dive rather, but managing your social media accounts in particular, I found myself like, listen, why am I following people just to say I have a high follow count or what have you? No, that doesn't matter to me at this stage of the game, right? My wellness and my emotional and mental integrity matters more. So everybody can't have access to me. Everybody can't have access to my thoughts because it's just not for them, right? It's not for them. This is about me. This is my life. I had a young fella who somebody was like, listen, I know some young fella, he wants to reach out to you to get some information. I'm like, all right, here's my email, have him email me. He emailed me and he wrote me a page of, telling me about everything he's doing with regards to mental health. And I applaud the young brother. And I had to hit him back and say, young fella, what are you asking of me? Right? What are you asking? Get to the point. Right. And I said, but I didn't want to come across callous. And so what I said, listen, I had to learn this lesson in my 30s. Because just like Mark, before him and I cultivated a relationship, I met him somewhere else. And, we was talking, I was just going on ranting. And he was like, so what are you asking of me? And I had to realize, like, it's kind of selfish if I'm sitting here ranting to somebody else and I don't even get to the point of what it is that I'm asking them to do. I'm not respecting their time. And I said, young fella, listen, get to the point, because you don't know how long you're going to have somebody's attention for, right? And so you need to work on your elevator pitch. You need to get to the point of what you're asking somebody to do. And I'm waiting for them to respond. But again, it's because, we do have a lot of things going on. We do have to set boundaries. In a different space and time, I probably would have continued to engage. But again, I know for me, where I'm at in these programs, my business and all of these things, I can't necessarily, allow that much time to just to rant. And not to say I won't mentor them or engage with them. But again, we have to be mindful about the access that we allow people in our time because again, it influences how we show up.
So in the time we have left, Philip, if you were to make some recommendations to the listeners about some things they can do now as we continue to navigate this environment, I tell people COVID is not going away. Like HIV did not go away. We learned how to cope with it. Most viruses actually never get a vaccine and never get a quote unquote cure. Yeah. We just adapt, as a society and learn what precautions to take to prevent and deal with them. And so I'm not sitting around waiting saying, oh, life is going to go back to normal when a vaccine is announced. Because even then, I was telling my cousin, the flu vaccine, only 31%, at least in 2018, of Americans even took the flu vaccine. So then it's like, is it safe? Is it safe for all people? And then who's going to take it?
Yeah.
So my point is, I've said what I need to do is adapt a set of healthy choices, healthy thinking, healthy relationships that includes my wellness and includes my emotional and mental wellness and therapy and other tools, so that I can continue to thrive regardless of what happens after the election, with the election, which is another source of anxiety for me. Because that may not go down that road either. But I'm anxious about the election because I'm anxious about the future of our country and the future of our world. And I think that this is one of those elections that is going to shape it one way or the other. But that said, what are some things that you recommend as an expert, as a therapist, as a human being, as a Black man, that our audience should be at least thinking about doing and paying attention to in the months to come?
Cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break it down into to the wellness quad that I use for Quadify: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. So we talk about the physical piece, right? That means go getting your well visits. That means exercising, whatever it is that you can do. If you can get up and take a few steps, then that's an amazing thing, right? Walk around the block, just do something to if in the event that you can, right? Do something physically, some type of physical exercise. Make sure you're eating some healthy thing. Incorporate some fruits and vegetables. Listen, I understand there's food deserts everywhere, right? It makes it difficult. So I'm not taking any of that for granted in the event that you can. Make sure you're getting some quality sleep, right? Quality sleep. There's so many people who aren't getting quality sleep, and that starts to add up. And that can, sleep deprivation can cause psychosis. It can cause depression, anxiety, or what have you. So making sure you're getting your sleep. When we talk about the mental aspect of it, listen, now I play Sudoku, I play different word games, because people sometimes conflate mental health and emotional wellness. They conflate. And when we talk about mental health, truly, we're talking about the brain synapses, what's happening with the mind. So how can you strengthen your mind? Go read a book, learn something new, right? Engage in a new hobby. Because again, it's forcing you to learn, which again, when we learn something new, we start to feel good about ourselves. When we talk about emotional wellness, we're talking about going to therapy. So seeking out therapy services. Again, you can look me up on psychologytoday.com, Phillip Roundtree, or quantifyllc.net. You can reach out to inquire about coaching services. Listen,
I want to stress two things on that. One, if you're insured, if you're fortunate enough to have insurance and it offers mental health services, take advantage of them. My frustration is a lot of people that actually either can afford it or have access to it don't do it. And then if you don't have that, and a lot of people don't, because the battle for healthcare in general is still a battle of the haves and the have-nots, and mental wellness is the same thing. Don't assume that there aren't free and low-cost services available. Assume that there are, and go out and look for them. Because so many people say, well, I don't get it because that's for rich people, or I can't afford it, I don't have insurance. If you have insurance, take advantage of the service. And if you don't have insurance, assume that there's some free or low-cost resources available for your mental wellness.
and what you can do is, because I actually did a seminar on it last year, and I uploaded it as a podcast. So I have the hashtag You Good Man podcast. It's on all streaming platforms. You can search Phillip Roundtree or hashtag You Good Man. And it's how to find a therapist. I spent that hour and some change going step by step how it is you can find a therapist if you're insured, underinsured, or have no insurance at all. Talk about sliding scales and everything. So go check that out, as well as the other content for that. Again, some quick strategies that you can use. Listen, yes, every cell phone now has a screen time where you can see exactly how much time you're using on your phone. The reason why it was put on the Apple is because Apple investors went to them and said, listen, these reports are coming out talking about depression and anxiety amongst people who are using apps, who are using technology, and they're using our phone. We have to put something in place so we can at least say we're doing something. Hence the reason why Apple now has screen time. We have it on, I have an Android. Thrive Global is something amazing where it can shut down your phone for X amount of time. You can limit the time you spend on apps. Again, take inventory of that. I'm a huge fan of journaling. If you're able to journal your experiences within COVID, that's a beautiful thing. If you want to start today, it could be a happy face. You know what? Today I'm happy. Today I'm sad. Because then you're able to reflect on it and understand what you were going through in that situation, right? So I'm a fan of journaling. Again, exercising, becoming one with the environment, meditating. Then when we talk about that spiritual aspect, it's not necessarily about religion, but if you're consider yourself a religious person, whoever your deity is, having that relationship is beautiful. But spiritual is also about having a sense of self, having a sense of purpose in life. So doing different things to try to figure out, why am I here? Keep it funky with you. I tell my students all the time, I was going to leave the field of social work. I was about to start working at Villanova University as a strength and conditioning coach. I got another degree in everything, hence the 2 masters. But it was when Emmanuel Sloan died by suicide that I realized what I was supposed to do. So here I went and got this other degree that I'm still paying off that I don't utilize, right? Because I realized what my purpose is. And so again, that takes time. We have to be open to the experiences. Don't be forced to. If you're younger or older, listen, it's still time to figure out who it is that you are, your place in this world, and what it is that you desire for the rest of your life to look like. And so, I'm a huge fan of all aspects of those. And again, just figuring it out.
Your point about the spiritual part and just the time, and this is another, again, a positive, unintended positive outcome of the social isolation of the pandemic. At least for me, it's been, like you said, I'm one of the people that's busy all the time, like sun up to sundown, whether I'm doing the things I want to do or the things I have to do. And for the last, 6 months, for the most part, I've had quiet time. Now, one of the things that I've always done, because I read that the actor Larry Hagman used to do this, I have a day of silence, like maybe once or twice a year, where I literally won't speak a word for 24 hours. I may use other tools for communicating, but he was like, it's just a way for him to shut down and hear himself think. And so when you talked about the spirituality is not just praying and whatever church you go to or in whatever Bible or religious text you read, and I do those things. It's also cultivating that relationship with yourself. And I tell people I have quiet time where the only voices I can now hear is my own and God's. And because you don't realize how many all these voices, past and present, are running around in your head, literally driving you crazy sometimes because you're not. So I said, this has allowed me the chance to sit down and think, listen to what I feel and what I hear in my own head and what I'm thinking. And so many people don't realize or haven't realized until now how disconnected they were to their own thoughts and their own feelings, which obviously therapy is a big part of working you to that too. Yeah. But when you're not in your therapy session, you still need to be able to hear your own voice and to be clear about how you're feeling, if only to diagnose what you need.
Yeah.
Like I've been in therapy long enough now that I not only knew that I was ready for my next session, I knew what I needed to talk about because I could hear my own voice when I wasn't in session.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what's critical in that is, it's a process. We got to extend ourselves grace. We won't get everything right. We won't make the best decisions all the time, especially as the people who've had to be perfect, in order to really, thrive out here. We got to extend ourselves grace. We're human, right? We're fallible. But again, how can we learn from this, and how can we potentially be better? And so therapy helps with that, and all the other various ways, whether it's, how it is being in bodybuilding. Listen, we might not have the best day of eating. And it's just like, okay, am I going to beat myself up about it? Or am I going to make my next meal my best meal? And that's make my next workout my best workout. Because really the only thing that truly counts is this moment in time right here. It's 2:03 p.m. right here, right now. And this is the only moment that matters. But so much of our stress and internal issues come from the past and comes from the future, right? And so that's why it's so important to be mindful and practice mindfulness and just be in this moment. That doesn't mean we don't learn from the past or we don't prepare for the future, but we have to truly figure out how we can make the most of 2:04 p.m.
Right. Now, listen, Phil, thank you so much for coming on, man.
No doubt.
You're always a gift. Whenever we just talk, but
Yeah. Because again, this could go on for hours.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna have you back on. A couple of the guests were like, we got to come back on and do a follow up, and I think you're one of them. Maybe in 3 or 4 months when we see where we are, and obviously there'll be new challenges and new opportunities.
Yeah.
But listen, thank you so much for being the guest for the series.
No doubt, no doubt. Just real quick, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Instagram at Phil_Roundtree. I'm on Twitter as well. Also, check out my live daily digital show. It's on YouTube at Quadify LLC. That's Q as in quail, UAD as in dog, EFY LLC. It's called Rhetorically Speaking. And it's me for an hour and some change having conversation about current events. Like, I don't know when you guys are going to see this, but I spoke earlier about the courageousness of Andrew Gillum for
Yes,
identifying as being a bisexual Black man, and what permission that offers, whether you agree with it. I don't get into all that, but the permission that it offers another to live their truth. And so I have in-depth, thoughtful conversations about this because as an undergrad professor, I've realized that critical thinking is a lost art, and we have to promote it by any means necessary. Just like Beyond the Hype, we got to promote it because, again, we're getting caught up in this 130 characters on Twitter or these clickbait type of posts. But no, it's the critical thinking that's going to serve us, especially as a community. So check out Rhetorically Speaking. It's a wonderful thing on YouTube.
Yeah, listen. Again, Beyond the Hype audience, you want to connect to Philip in any way possible. I mean, so if you find one platform, you'll find all of them. But trust you, it'll be very rewarding for you, and particularly to brothers. And again, now that you're doing this virtually, You Good Man is doing such good work. In part because what you said earlier, Phil, it's not even so much what is said or not. It's about having a safe space to say it.
Exactly.
I tell people, that the importance of therapy. I have a really great therapist, but beyond his particular skill set and his education and his credentials and his skills, it's really about the value of having a space where I can say what I gotta say. I have to worry about how it comes out. I have to worry about what it makes me look like. This is not a family member who may love me, but who may be hurt or feel some kind of way about what I'm saying. Yeah. And the ability to create safe spaces for us to exist and to be who we are without apology, so we can have grace, the grace of just saying, you're right, I'm not really this perfect person. I'm not even who I think I am sometimes, but I need to work my way through this. I gotta have some place where I can just say what I gotta say. Yeah. And sometimes the people that love you the most are the least safest space.
Listen, and that's why I started it. I had a person speak to, they say, Phil, listen, you know, this is a patriarchy that we live in, right? And I'm like, yeah, why do you need the group? And I'm like, listen, exactly, it's a patriarchy that we live in, and we fall victims of some of the tenets within this patriarchy, which is we can't be expressive, right? We can't necessarily say things the way that we desire to say them, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, because of how it's going to be perceived. And so that's why the hashtag You Good Man. If you're interested, shoot me a message on any of the social media platforms. If you look up Phillip Roundtree, you'll find that I have that. I have the hashtag You Good Man men's book club that meets every 6 weeks, where, you know, we take a book and we dissect it, whether it's Bell Hooks, Salvation, whether it's The Good Homie, The Good Brother. It's one of the best books, best memoirs of all time. Kaise Layman, heavy, amazing book. If you haven't read it, Alfred, I'll send you my copy. It's, again, man, this book is, whew. And I've had the opportunity to interview this brother and speak with him. And it's just, man, and it won awards. Like, he's won so many awards. He's taking a sabbatical now. He's a professor down at Ole Miss.
Repeat the title of the book and the author again.
It's heavy. It's Kaise. It's Kiese Layman, Laymon. It's a memoir. And again, he's from Mississippi. And when I say the brother got it, and he getting all the accolades that he deserves, again, but it speaks so much to the truth about the Black male experience, and in his case, the Southern Black male experience, but we can all empathize with it because he is talking about taboo things like body image, like identity, like relationship with your mother, with your father, as being an intellectual, navigating white spaces in school, which so many of us have to do. But his prose is so beautiful, so I recommend that. And then last but not least, because I know it's always people who look at the painting and they're like, why is it Biggie with a gun to his head? It's like he's dying by suicide. And the amazing story behind that is, it's a artist by the name of Justin Wadlington. He's the one-eyed artist. He has one eye.
Wow.
And so that's his hand in the background. And the title of the painting is Suicidal Thoughts. And for me, it spoke volumes to what it is that what I'm doing out here. Again, trying to save young Black men, older Black men, Black women, their mental health, right? So they don't have to resort to this, because there's so many of us that, and we see the various colors that speaks to the creativity that's within all of us. But at some point, something happens for some of us to where we don't get to fulfill our potential. And so for him, he could have easily went down that route, because, you know, he's had a parent die by suicide. He is another absentee parent, so he's doing this all on himself. He wasn't born blind. He lost his eye at an early age, and he could have said, forget this. The trauma that I've experienced is enough for me to say, to throw everything away. But he said, you know what, at his later age, I have this talent. I need to cultivate this. So this is like 1 of 12. Like, and I always like saying, like, I have one, Shaq has one of these, you know what I mean? So
I got to get me one somehow.
Huh?
I got to get me one somehow.
Yeah, man. He again, he's a dope brother. So I just wanted to put that out there. Because again, we got to support and promote one another, man, because we all we got.
You got it. You got it. Listen, again, thank you again. Like Phil said, we could go on forever. So, but we're going to wrap this up again. Thank you for being a guest on Beyond the Hype, Phillip. Always a joy. Always a joy.
Thanks, Albert. Peace.
Yep. And this is Alfred Edmond Jr. with Black Enterprise for the latest edition of Beyond the Hype. Thanks for joining us.